Hello, 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 and welcome to Survivor NSFW Rewind, Professor Tim Watches Borneo. I am your host, as always, Karen Eisenberg, and today we will be discussing episode 11, Long Hard Days. Boy, my mouth is really not working today. But before I bring in my guests, let me just tell you, as always, I am modeling a Survivor NSFW t-shirt. Today, I am actually wearing our Rewind t-shirt made for this broadcast. And I have to learn the tack about how I can put up a little picture of the t-shirt while I'm speaking. I haven't figured that out yet. But anyway, you can find the picture and all the others at johnnyfairplay.com, Jonny, no H. And remember, with every purchase, you will get a call from the great Johnny Fairplay. Tim, I'm gonna be bringing Tim on right now. I'm joined by Tim as my co-host. Tim, did you ever receive this T-shirt? T-shirt.
No, I didn't dare to mention it because I thought that would be rude. But no, I haven't received anything. We're going to blame the British postal system, I think.
Right. Well, are you getting mail from the U.S. right now?
I so rarely get mail from the US. This is a sort of plea, as a needy person. Please, people in the US, send me mail. No,
I asked because in Israel, they're not getting US mail and vice versa because the mail is normally carried by the national airline on their regular passenger flights. And since there are no passenger flights, for a long time, there simply was no mail.
No. I have got mail from the US because I've got copies of Cinefex, so I've had a few. So it's not an impossibility, but I haven't received the T-shirt, and I don't think it's been suppressed or anything. Bay hadn't got his hands on a T-shirt. Johnny Fairplay, which would be awful. And I'm looking forward to my phone call, having done a podcast on YouTube with him. I'm sort of I'm needy for every bit of Johnny Fairplay I can get.
All right, we'll send you another one, and we'll tell Johnny to call you. I just do have to flag. We'll talk to Survivor in a minute, but I just do have to tell our audio listeners that Tim has finally gotten a haircut. And he's quite happy about it.
Can you see? It's not in very good condition at the moment because I've been stressing all day and making telephone calls, and Bay has been extremely needy, more needy than me, I think, actually. So I don't quite know what's come over my household.
We'll tell Johnny to talk to Bay too.
I think Bay would appreciate a Johnny Fairplay telephone call and possibly a Johnny Fairplay T-shirt, and I promise I will try and design a Bay T-shirt for you, and a Tim look, which will fit in with the others. Otherwise, I will feel excluded and unwanted, and that doesn't do anything for my neediness.
So now,
and today
we should make T-shirts for the cats.
Yes.
Have you ever put clothing on your cats?
Never. They're a little bit like Richard. They just want to be free and run around and shock everybody. Right. And Bay, if he gets an opportunity, wants to stick his legs in the air and show what he can do.
All right, so no cat T-shirts. You saw it, you heard it here first. There will be no T-shirt cats, but there might be T-shirts with pictures of cats on.
T-shirts with pictures of cats would be very good, I think.
All right.
One I still have two, but I'm afraid the older cat is she is very frail now, but she's hung on much longer than I expected, and she's still here. Yeah. A bit like Elaine Stritch, and I'm still here. Tom. I got through Vino's and blah blah blah. So they could do. I got through COVID, and mask wearing. But AJ, you know all about mask wearing.
Yes. Let's also bring in
away from me onto someone more interesting. AJ.
So today we are joined by AJ Mass. So AJ I actually got to know AJ first, I think, first as a Survivor fan, right? I heard you on RHAP talking about the 13 archetypes of Survivor. And then you started a trivia podcast, which I made the extremely bad decision to go on, not because it wasn't a fun experience. It was a fun experience for everybody but me. I didn't do particularly.
I heard about this.
Yeah, it was my first podcast appearance ever, and easily could have been my last podcast appearance ever. And AJ is a sportscaster and the former official mascot of the New York Mets, and I'm sure there are other things I am forgetting about. So AJ, tell people everything about you and everything about your Survivor story.
Well, I think you just did a big chunk of it, didn't you? Yes, I am all those things. Glad you're having me on for the trivia episode.
That was totally planned. That I had the trivia host on for the trivia contest. No, I absolutely did not think of that when I booked you, but it worked out well.
It worked out. I smiled when I rewatched. Beat My Guest is the name of the trivia podcast. We're on a bit of a hiatus right now for the summer, but we hopefully we'll be back in the fall once I've recharged my batteries and gotten out of my front door for a few minutes here and there. It's a bit of a podcast that's kind of reminiscent of Richard Osman's House of Games, if you were familiar with that show.
There we are.
I'll Anglophile this up for you.
Please don't. I'm rapidly moving across the Atlantic.
Oh, there you go.
In a little barrel, I think. You have to imagine something rather like Edward Lear. There was an old man in a barrel. I don't know what rhymes with that. But that would be me, making my way slowly.
Singing a Christmas carol.
Going across. Is it Christmas Island, which is halfway across? Or is it Ascension Island?
I think Christmas Island is closer to. Is that closer to Chile?
There's one of these little islands right in the middle of the Atlantic, which you stop off on halfway across, and then you continue on your way to. Where are you? Are you in New York?
I am in New Jersey, which is close to New York. So. Oh
my goodness! You're on the way to Connecticut.
No, further down.
In the other way.
Yes.
It's on the way down to Washington.
Yes, it goes New York City, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, Virginia.
I've done that journey. I've done that.
I-95, probably, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Very exciting, but many years ago.
Many years ago it was exciting.
I love New York.
Now just walking down the street is exciting. So different times.
Or not. Thinking about walking down the street is exciting.
Indeed.
I can be so excited just literally sitting here.
Oh, it's all good. I just hope someday that you'll allow me to be at least an honorary member of Scholar Squad. That's really my goal here.
Please. I'm always worried that Scholar Squad is has sort of vanished, but so I'm eager to set it up at any moment. But I feel that as one of these people who walks around with a sort of ball on your head, you're already an honorary member of Doctor Who.
Yeah, there were times I did feel like. Parts of me were going to fall off, like some of those early 50s Daleks, where the construction wasn't necessarily very good there.
I had a great family friend who was a Silurian when I was quite small, so I knew from quite an early age that these monsters were not real. But it didn't stop me going behind the back of the sofa at 5 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, I'm afraid. We're a bit of an older demographic, the three of us here. So, because like I really stopped watching Doctor Who when Tom Baker was still the Doctor. So
well, before Tom Baker, I mean, I gave up when Tom Baker appeared. He looked like Tom Jones, and I thought that is not Doctor Who. Doctor Who is John Pertwee. And then I warmed to him. I warmed to Tom Baker in the end, and to Adric. And then Peter Davison came along, and by that point I was at university, and of course you get a new wave of childhood when you're at university. So I loved it. And Peter Davison had one of the great Doctor Who lines where he just regenerated, and he looked in the mirror and said, "That's the problem with regeneration. You never know what you're going to get." I would love to play Doctor Who. I think I would love to be the Doctor, or I would love to be some sort of completely mad scientist.
I could see you as Matt Smith's father on the, you could be a Matt Smith's father.
I could. Yeah, I could do a Bond villain. I think the days of my villains are over, but I could stretch it for a Doctor Who. I think.
There you go. And that's my Survivor history.
I'm sorry, I invaded your autobiography.
No, that's totally fine.
So in the Survivor community, I think AJ is best known for what he calls the 13 archetypes of Survivor. That when you get to the merge, right, of pretty much any Survivor season, you're going to see these 13 types of people.
Yeah, and
can you explain them with respect to the characters we've got now?
Well, we'll get to.
I would have thought about that ahead of time.
But what are your 13?
Yeah, well, the 13 personalities are, and generally this can apply to any group of, in an office where people work, or just any group of friends. People tend, I think, to take on these roles, their personality types, their personality roles. That just, if you're going to get a whole bunch of people who think the same and act the same and talk the same, you're not going to stick together very long. You need, for a group to succeed and for teamwork to make the dream work, you need different perspectives. And people tend, I think, when they're in groups of 12 or 13, to fall along these lines. And you see it season after season on reality shows. You get what I call the diplomat, who's the person who's able to kind of negotiate between all parties. Yes. You get the mad scientist, someone who's always scheming and coming up with plans, and they're never satisfied with where they are in the game, and they got to start saying, "Oh, if you do this and you do this, and you do this." You get something I call the marriage of convenience, which could be a romantic partnership, or it could be just two people who've decided they're going to work together as a team from the beginning to the end. We have something called
two people there.
Yeah, that's a two-person. So that's why it's 12. It's 12 archetypes, but 13 people will fill the roles.
Right, as opposed to being if we add a little bit more of a sort of polyamory.
Yes,
could get 3 people into that one.
Yes, on Love Island, I'm sure you could probably do 16 or 17 of these. But we've
everybody has an attachment in Love Island.
Exactly,
like a dog.
Captain Loophole, who is the person Loophole. Captain Loophole, Loophole. Kind of like the lawyer of the group, the one who knows the rules of the game and is going to look for every single loophole, every technicality. Someone who's going to be extremely mischievous when in terms of, asking Jeff Probst all potential questions of like, can I do this? Well, how about can I do this? They're going to try and push that envelope as far as they can because they've studied the game.
So exciting. Go on.
We have the idiot savant, someone who is doing very well in the game. And yet, really, there's no reason that they should be doing this well in the game because they're...
And that presumably is Sean in this one.
Alphabet strategy would definitely fall into this kind of a qualification, yeah.
Right.
We have old reliable. That's someone who's pretty much what you see is what you get.
On this season?
We've had a number of those in this season, haven't we?
They're very good at what they do.
Rudy is the main one here, in that case, or is it Sue?
Well, I haven't gone back and done this in such a long time. I mean, I would think you could argue, and again, you do it when there are 13 people left because it's a snapshot of that time, and it's really hard to do it after the fact because then people's roles change as we start, people leave.
I'm itching at this moment because I have a background in theology. I'm itching either to tell you about, either to ask you about Judah, or Jacob, or to ask you about Jesus and his followers. Sure. Because that's all a bit vague, isn't it? But they presumably fit numerically into the right.
Absolutely, and you could go back and figure out where the sons of Zebedee lie and all that stuff. Absolutely.
So which one is Joseph?
Again, I haven't done this as long. I wrote a book about this too, so you could actually.
Well, I think we're crying out for a sequel.
Indeed.
So AJ, you didn't do this for Borneo because I realized to do it for Borneo for 13 people, we would have to do that after the third boot, right? It would be, but normally it's around third if you have a season with 20 people, with a season with 16. Right.
Sure. And also, I mean, this was something I came up with long after this season had aired. So,
of course.
And
what was the first season for which you actually did this in real time?
I did it for China. I remember doing it for China. That might have been the first. That was around the time I started doing it. So I'm not sure.
And that was season 15. So you've been doing it for quite a while. You've certainly been doing it for as long time as I've been hanging around in the fan community.
Absolutely, yeah.
We have 7 at the moment.
Okay, so I think I left off reliable. Yeah, so there's the narcissist. This is the person who thinks they're all that. I mean, that's in the name. We have the loose cannon, person who will blow up and have an argument with everybody.
Right.
Yeah.
We have the cheerleader. The cheerleader is also sometimes referred to as the house mother.
Yes.
Definitely that type of person. Anything for the team, but I'm not here to play the game. I'm just here to make sure everybody's having a good time. And we can't vote against someone from our tribe. We have to vote for the other tribe because we're a team.
I see myself in so many of these roles.
And it wouldn't work on the circle. There's only 8 of you at the time.
Well, no, there could be more. It just depends how many are doubling up.
A little bit, yeah. Then we have the X Factor, which is the one person who is different from everybody else for an intangible reason that they can't control. So this could be someone who maybe has a physical handicap. If they're the only person in a wheelchair on a show, and that would be something that makes them X Factor. They could be the only gay person on a season full of all heterosexuals. There's something that is not in their control that's making them different. It could be the only parent in a season full of all singles. We don't know exactly what it is when the season starts, but by the time you get down to 13, there's usually one person you go, oh, that person's different. When the strategies start to get a little more complicated and they start throwing more twists in, this could be a person who's already been voted out of the season and allowed back onto the show, because once they start throwing that wrinkle in, well, that person...
Do they do that? That's very interesting.
Unfortunately, that is a twist that somewhere down the line they've used once or twice. It's a twist, of course,
in the circle, so I am familiar with this twist.
Yes, this is also true.
But I remember a contestant in the first season of the circle, and we were having a little chat, and I said, "But you were so good. You could never have been. You could never have been blocked." And this particular person said to me, "Oh, I was told that even if I were blocked, they'd find a way to get me back." I thought, yeah, absolutely. The gods know best.
Oh, absolutely. They play a little loose with the rules sometimes. Absolutely. And I guess the last 2 would be the ninja. The ninja is the person who is, when you go to list the 13 people who are left in the game, you completely forget about them. They're getting no edit. They're not getting any time. They're invisible. They're absolute. In American Survivor, we call them getting the purple edit, based on a character named Purple Kelly who got no confessionals and was like, okay, and who is that again? Oh, that's right, Kelly's on the show. But yeah, the ninja, you just forget that they're even there. They don't really have a chance to win because you can tell from the edit. And the last one is fresh meat. Fresh meat is someone who doesn't know what game they've signed up for. They might not even know the rules. They may have never seen an episode. They probably were recruited. They probably look pretty and were in a bar, and the casting director said, "Hey, would you like to be on television?" And there they are on the show, and they don't know how to play the game. And they really, with rare exceptions, are the first boot, as soon as possible, in theory. Yeah. But because this is a game where you have to win the votes at the end, they tend to get dragged a long way because they're kind of a goat. You get to the end and it's like, if I'm sitting next to this person, no one's voting for them. So, when you get to the merge, that's where the flip happens, where it's no longer our tribe has to win. It's like, I wouldn't mind sitting next to them at the end.
Yes. That makes perfect sense. So you have some very strange results because of the way the voting works.
Oh, absolutely. You definitely have, and it's because, this first season, of course, is different because in the first season, obviously, they're playing for the first time. There's no established history, but in future seasons, I mean, these people who have watched previous seasons say, you know what? When we watched that first season, such and such happened, and history will probably repeat itself. And people make voting decisions sometimes based on those previous precedents that have been set.
Right. I'm scared of this person because they remind me of this person from the last season.
But so much seems to be now about, you're voting people out not because they're no good, but because actually they present a threat to you in the future.
Yeah, and I know you guys discussed this with the Gretchen vote. It's like that was kind of like set the tone in this first season. That like, I mean, Richard was looking ahead and thinking ahead, and he was the only one at the beginning. Certainly, no one in Pagong was thinking that about the future. I mean, that's why we call it being Pagong. I mean, it's like we just want to dance and do, and it's like you're playing the game. Hello, you not see this? And none of them did.
Yes, I thought this particular episode was there was a brutality about it under the surface that was itching to get out, and it was actually, to me, far more evident than I've ever seen before in Survivor. Now, for you, you would think, "Oh my goodness, this is so mild." For me, I was thinking, "This is so vicious."
Well, I think you're coming from a background, if I'm not mistaken, is like, you watched a lot of Big Brother UK.
No, I've never watched Big Brother.
Oh, you've never watched any Big Brother?
I've seen very little.
I'm a reality TV virgin, AJ.
Okay. But the
Game
the
of
general.
Thrones, I'm fine. Give me
There
a
you go.
dragon and somebody whose clothing has strangely disappeared, and I'm okay. But Big Brother, I'm completely lost. And I go to sleep.
I will say the thing that I do think a lot of people who are from the UK who had never watched Survivor and were only familiar with the Big Brother format, where the fans watching at home vote.
Oh yeah,
it's so different than what I love about Survivor, and one of the reasons I've been a fan since day one. It's whatever we as contestants decide are the rules. It's like, there's no one telling you, like you on the circle, which was like, it's like, okay, yeah, you voted and you rated the people, but number 8 is now actually automatically out, as opposed to having an influencer making the decision.
All right.
Like,
well,
you don't even know what you're voting for.
No, but we didn't know that at the beginning. We thought
exactly.
We thought the system was very much like as it appears to be in the Survivor, that we vote and then we make a decision and off they go.
No, but I'll be interested to hear what you have to say about this episode, Tim, because I have to tell you, like, quite frankly, after I finished, rewatching it today, I was like, okay, so Colleen's legs are messed up. Sean got to see his father, and Colleen went home. And we'll see you all next week. I mean, there's really just not that much to talk about in this episode.
No, I think Karen, I could go on about this episode until
I agree.
Come home.
Okay. So clearly, I am in the wrong.
I've got more notes today than I had last week, and I thought fascinating. And in fact, I've got a biggie coming up. So, as Robin Williams would say, yeah.
Okay.
I could drop a lot.
Now, is there any biggies, or the first act is always the reverberations from what happened last week, right? So we saw Jervis went home, but we didn't even really have so many.
There's something even before you start that.
Okay, what were you going to say?
Stuck out to me was today the first time they changed the title sequence, because it said 16 castaways. Surely there's not 16. Surely there's more.
No, there were 16.
Oh right, then I'm just checking. or innumerate. Both are possible.
No, as like I said, in many seasons, especially the more modern seasons, having 20 people is not, or 18 or 20 is not unusual.
So there you go. My sound of observation. Oh, it's different. It's different. Ah!
That's not it.
Not different. Not different. Exactly the same, Tim. You're just sort of, you want
the opening credits were in Spanish this time. Did you notice that?
What?
The opening credits were in Spanish this time.
No? One language, another language. Who cares? I have a trick when I'm in another country. I believe that as long as I'm not speaking English, somebody else will understand me.
If you speak some random foreign language,
half a sentence in one language, half a sentence in another, with a few strange words thrown in from whatever you want, and somebody is bound to understand. I remember having an argument with somebody in a bank in Greece, and And in Greece, there was a rule that if you were a bank manager, you had to have a certificate in competent English. And so I asked to speak to the bank manager. Now, clearly, he hadn't got the certificate. He'd bought it because he could barely string a sentence together in Greek, let alone English. And I got really quite angry. And then I realized, and I was trying to do it in Greek. And I realized there is no possibility of winning an argument in a language that is not your own, because the other person is bound to have words which you've never heard of. And then instead of getting annoyed, you get excited and fascinated and curious. Oh, what is that word? What is yeah, I still hate you. What is that wonderful word? I do find other languages bewitching. Why doesn't one have a Survivor in 20 different languages? Just bundle them all together and see what happens. It's like the Tower of Babel, the Babel season.
Oh, so just have like one person from each country that has had a Survivor.
Yeah,
season?
with absolutely no common language at all. You know, maybe the occasional word of pidgin English, and everything is subtitled. You keep so many people employed. It would be such an exciting experience. No one could understand a word. I remember I had for a while I was illustrating doing the front cover for scripts from plays which were on in the West End or Broadway, and it was always great fun because they didn't have any money. So the front covers were always done in sort of 2-tone or 3-tone or something, and you had to do all these overlays to try and make it look as glossy and wonderful as possible on a shoestring. And I got an amazing play through by a man called Martin Sherman, who'd written a play called Bent, which sort of became very big. But this play was called When She Danced. It was about Isadora Duncan, the lady with the scarf. Do you know of her? And she married a man in Russia called Sergei Yesenin. Now, it goes much further than this, because when I'm in Russia, I live in Sergei Yesenin's house by pure chance. And when I come out of the front door, there's a big sort of plaque on the wall saying, "This is Sergei Yesenin's home." And I feel terribly proud of this. And I had an exhibition in Moscow about a year ago, and I snuck in a drawing of this big plaque, which is really like saying, "Look where I live! Look where I live!" But in this play by Martin Sherman, every character only spoke the language which was appropriate. So Sergei Yesenin did not speak English or French, and so couldn't really communicate with Isadora Duncan. They were married. There were so many things she didn't know about him. He was gay. He didn't speak English. The marriage wasn't going to last very long. He was an alcoholic. But, you know, they managed a year in Paris.
Other than that, they were fine, right?
Other than that, they were fine. And they were visited during this play by various people. There was a wonderful Greek man who spoke English and Greek. And then had been named after Isadora Duncan, and he played the piano. Quite charming. And at the end, there was a Swedish girl who came and didn't speak anything except for Swedish. But I thought polyglot theatre, this is the way forward, and no one else has ever written a play like that.
Wait, so this play was actually performed, and so you're saying like the Swedish character only spoke in Swedish?
Yeah, but because it was so well written, we sat in the audience because it was done. It was done once in a small theatre in London, in a pub theatre, and then it was done in the Queen's Theatre or something, with Vanessa Redgrave playing Isadora. You know, she played it in the film, and now she came back and did it as an older person, and she was spectacular. And then it was done again. In fact, I did it in Oxford with and there was a girl called Millie Fox, who's now quite big in a television series where she cuts open dead bodies, but she's part of the Fox family, Edward Fox, and but I just thought polyglot theatre, that's the way forward. And we sat in the audience and we believed we understood everything, because Sergei had these long speeches, 2 or 3 pages long, in Russian, not a word of English, and we just sat there thinking, I understand Russian, because it was so well written. I don't understand a word. I still don't understand a word, really, and I have to lecture over there periodically. But you know, I just say da da, And on one occasion, I was given a plate of extraordinary meat. I thought, what is this? And it turned out to be bear.
Okay.
It was quite difficult to get through. And the following day, I was taken off to somewhere else, and I thought, what is this? And that was venison. I thought, I'm slowly eating my way through the entire Disney canon.
Venison is fairly common in the U.S.
Well, yes, I know.
Your areas, but not bear.
Yesterday I ate Baloo. Now I'm eating Bambi. Tomorrow I might be eating a plate of mice.
And you're going alphabetically, so it works nicely.
we need to get back to the subject in hand. So we've got our 16 castaways.
Right.
The program opening has not changed despite my sort of misgivings. And we got Rich on his 31st day saying that there's a counting the days until the end. I'm feeling rather miserable, as is Kelly.
Yeah, and as Colleen, right? They showed us.
Her legs.
Yeah, the things on her legs. And this is something, and this continued well after Borneo. It depends on where they are. Some seasons are worse than others, but this is pretty common, where people end up with millions of bug bites and they get infected. And with Colleen, so in Mark Burnett's book, he wrote this, I think, I want to say a year or two afterward, and he said that she has she had fungal infections on top of just all the bug bites, and she was treated for that, but they said she's going to have a lot of those are going to be permanent scars. Just from bug bites and little abrasions and things that she got on the island. So yeah, that's definitely a thing. And we've heard that from other people also in other seasons. It depends on exactly what it is that's biting them in any given year.
I'm worried about the gladiatorial aspect of this of Survivor as entertainment. I'm worried that at least in a way, as an audience, we know there are some programs we don't know, but I find the idea that we've got an audience at home which is cheering these people on, enjoying this program, and yet at the same time we're doing permanent damage to the talent that is providing this entertainment. I think this is morally questionable. Right. AJ, please come back.
What do you think, AJ? Is this morally questionable?
I think this is the first season, and I think there's a lot that perhaps Colleen did not know what she was getting in for, and I think a lot of the first season contestants did not know what they're getting in for.
Had no one done any research? Gone onto an island? Have you not sent a producer off into the island to test it out? Oh,
probably not. But I mean, they do have medical staff on hand. It's not like they left them there completely.
Maybe on hand, but not on legs. Certainly not on Colleen's leg.
Well, no, I feel like that they were. My understanding is that they were treating her.
Not very well. It looked disgusting.
Right, and the great thing about Australian Outback season 2 is that the one spoiler I will give you is that people are going to get much more beat up on that season than on Borneo. It's not like the production has looked at this and said, "Oh my gosh, we can't, do something like that we have to keep them much safer." It's the opposite. They put them in even worse conditions next time. So just kind of put that in your...
My concerns about this sort of gladiatorial aspect are trite and British.
I think there could be, if there was a wanton disregard for their health.
There's wanton thrill that she's got blisters and abrasions.
I don't think anyone's watching this with drooling at the legs and the wounds. Yes, give me more.
It's like Saint Sebastian. I mean, I if I want that sort of thing, I can go into a Spanish church.
I think there's the real. This is ostensibly reality, and while it's not real, but the conditions that they were enduring are indeed real. They are eating meager portions. It's not like they're, the cameras turn off and they get steaks.
Production feasting it up in a hotel.
Right. No, but from this standpoint, it actually, in a sense, made people feel, I don't want to say better, but I'm sure that there were many people who just assumed that this entire thing was staged, right? And that they went on the island every day and they played their little game and they went back to the hotel for dinner and got fed. That's not the case. But so maybe even that's why they kind of really showed us this is what people are suffering, to show us or try to convince us that this is actually this is really a thing and people are really suffering and they're not just doing it for the cameras.
Yeah, it's an adventure that these people have agreed to go on, and yes, there's a cash prize at the end, and this
this obsession with the cash prize took up about 10 minutes in today's episode, and
well, there wasn't a whole lot else to show us, but
also weren't a lot of shows doing this, at the time.
It's like a Mephistophelian. It's like a Faustian pact.
Yeah,
and,
that's exactly right.
And Jeff is Mephistopheles. Thankfully, today most of the time in water. But I just thought it's savage. There's a viciousness which came through today more than any other time that I've watched it.
And I think that's the deal. I think on many levels, it's a lot of shows and competition shows are one episode long. It's like, here are the 3 contestants, and maybe there's a semifinal round.
I wish.
But this shows to what lengths will people go to win this much money? Will they treat their fellow tribe mates poorly? Will they vote out the weak? Will they vote out the strong? Will they, we'll get into this, seasons from now. We're still trying to figure out how much you abuse people mentally in order to try and win, and it's for me, it's because the contestants themselves make the rules each season. There are some seasons that are very kumbaya. There are some seasons where there's like, we are a family, and no matter what, we are going to have a prayer circle at the start of every day, and we are going to sing songs, and we are not going to be mean to people. And there are other seasons where you see who gets in charge and who becomes the alpha characters, and they're horrible people, and you just can't wait for them to get their comeuppance. And I think that's the fact that each season takes on its own personality is kind of what makes this show one of the most human out there.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And this might be one of those situations, and I'm not saying they're right for doing it, but this cutthroat nature of it, it's like it's the human condition of these particular people at these particular times. It's fascinating to watch.
Would there be is there a situation where, for example, the contestants are all paid $4,000 or something to spend a month on a desert island? There is no cash prize. What would happen then?
It would be quite boring, would be my guess.
Boring, yeah. Yeah, it probably would be. It's a different show. I mean, it's
play the game, man. It does. I don't understand this allure of $1 million, possibly because I've never had $1 million. But I really don't. I just don't. First of all, it seems so greedy. And if if I were on a show and I was being offered $1 million, I would at least look embarrassed about talking about it. I just think these people are so desperate for filthy lucre. It's just not seen.
I will say, Tim, as the show, again, this is season 1, and even Mark Burnett and the producers had no idea this was going to work, that this was going to be successful, that anyone would watch. And I would say that as time has gone on, there are certainly many contestants who appear on this show. They're not playing for the money. We've had millionaires on the show.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we've had even in this episode, no, even in this season.
Yeah, certainly. But BB did not do this for the money. Right? BB doesn't need the money. BB wanted to do this for other reasons.
But there were definitely people who would come on the show and they said, I just want to win. I want to prove that I can outlast, outsmart my competition here. And the money's nice, but that's not why I'm doing it. I just want to prove to myself that I can last 39 days. There are some people who have that attitude for it. So not everybody is in it for the money, but when you're sitting there on day 32 or day 31 when this episode starts, and it's raining and you're miserable, and it's like, do I play a challenge for a chocolate bar, or do I just say, hey, in 8 days I could win $1 million? You're going to focus on the $1 million to get you through. I think especially at this point of the season, you need the carrot, and that's the carrot. That otherwise, 5 people might quit.
If you had been on this episode, AJ,
yes,
and you had been offered, and you had been involved in that red, white, and blue game, which I by the way I very much enjoyed, and I've got some gripes about it. So we are going to talk about that. But If you had been involved in that game, would you have deliberately lost? Would you have wanted to go on the boat with all that entails?
I would say 99% of the time, I don't want anything to do with a reward win, a personal reward win. If it's a team reward, that's a different story. If we're just running a relay race, my team versus your tribe.
Yeah, a personal reward brings with it the sort of nonsense that being in a circle, being elected first or second and becoming an influencer brings with it. It's got a complete sting in its tail.
Well, I will say the lone difference is that at least when you are an influencer, you have immunity from going home. You're not going to vote yourself out. So there's at least the safety that comes with winning that competition. But whenever it's a reward challenge, and certainly, maybe you can cut them some slack season one. They didn't know necessarily that they were going to turn it into, and you get to take one person with you. But we're, by season 40, you're taking either one or two people with you, and you're going to have to tell one or two people who think they're going with you that you do not think so highly of them as they thought. You want no part of making that decision. You do not want to win.
Tim, I think a lot of people do throw reward challenges, and particularly, family rewards. Now, in this season, Sean did not know, that part of the prize was getting to see a family member. But if you do know that in those challenges, you do everything. You do not want to win that, because people get salty when, they find out that they're not going to get food or a shower or whatever. But it's nothing like the degree to which people get salty when somebody has prevented them from seeing their family member, right? That is just a position that you do not want to be in. Especially
when you are playing. Now, it wasn't the case. I mean, Sean won instead of Rich, and I don't think Rich necessarily threw this challenge at all, but he certainly wasn't disappointed that he didn't end up ultimately winning.
At the end of that game, I thought Rich was right and I thought Sean was wrong, so I was slightly surprised.
I just think when you have alliances, there's only one time when it's okay to win this challenge. If you are in an alliance of four, and it's it's the four of us and there's the four of them, you go into the challenge now and you kind of go, look, if any one of us wins, so and so will stay with the other three, and the other three will go. And if we have to pick a fourth, we'll pick this person. You plan it in advance. You don't want anyone being surprised by who gets selected.
You also don't want to be off on the boat and away from the group, do you?
Well, that's why you leave someone behind. You plan to say, all right, you stay there and watch him. And usually, and we've had seasons where they've planned that in advance. Said, no, I'll stay here. Don't worry about it. I ate last week. Right. That's a different situation.
Because
then you can win.
People did not necessarily think that far ahead in the early seasons.
Yeah.
And that is definitely a thing, right? So you win, you select all your friends, you all go on the boat to eat, and then what you're leaving is a bunch of disgruntled people who are not eating on the beach, and guess what happens next?
They vote you off.
Right. Or if there's 7 people, the worst is like when there's 7 people left and you're in an alliance of 4 and you win and you get to take 2 people with you, and the 4th person from your alliance that you don't take is now sitting there with 3 people, and they go, hey, look, they didn't take you. You're right. I'm voting one of them out. You don't want to set up that situation where you leave the numbers back at camp while you guys are eating high on the hog. No matter how close you think they are to you, they can be swayed at that moment. And unless, surely
at that moment, if you win, despite all your efforts not to, then you take somebody from the other group.
You kind of read the room. You can get away with anything in your explanation. You can say, look, isn't it great? This person from the other group, they tried so hard and they finished second. I'm going to take them. They did so well in this challenge. No one will begrudge you from that. Or, it's his birthday. I can't not take him on his birthday.
Right. Or if there's one person who has not eaten and everybody else has, right? Then you get somewhat of a free ride.
Don't you think this is what Sean was doing in today?
No, Sean was an idiot. Sean was an idiot because even that day, hey, I'm taking you. take Kel. I owe you a dinner. If he was going to do the what he ends up doing and taking Rich. Look, Rich is running the show. I think everybody there knows Rich is running the show.
Mm-hmm.
In British language, Sean was sucking up to Rich, wasn't he?
Absolutely.
Is that an expression I can use in America, or will I get into trouble?
No, that's an American expression.
That's a relief. I thought for a second I was treading on some sort of strange.
There's just something I wanted to bring up, but we're going to get into the challenge itself, right? It's trivia. I don't think we really need to talk about that. The breakfast thing is important, and we're going to get to that. But there was another thing I just wanted to flag, because again, I fall on my sword and I read all these books, so you all don't have to. Even Mark Burnett in his book admits this, but then doesn't really explain it. So what Sean was told, but it didn't make the episode, was that tomorrow you're going to have to choose. It wasn't just what we saw is you're going to get to pick somebody to join you for breakfast. That was not one of the original choices. On the day that the challenge was played, Sean was told, and Mark Burnett admits this, that he was told that the options were going to be you could bring a friend, you could bring everybody, or you could bring anybody but one person. Query why anybody in the world would ever choose number 3. Right, but they were giving him those options. And then once they saw who won and who was likely to be taken, right, then the next morning it turned into breakfast. So I'm just kind of dangling it out there. I don't have a good resolution for you. But there are some questions
with the whole of this scenario.
Mm-hmm.
Can we just cut to that and then we can come back and look at this a little bit more chronologically. I've already here, and Bay is obviously very, very keen to get off this because so I'm back to my thing about whinging about production, because nobody flew in Sean's father to the boat. Is that Sean's father's boat?
No. So that's not Sean's father's boat. So again, let me just give you some background, because I was wondering how in the heck they were going to get Sean's father, on the island that quickly. Okay. And the answer is that what they did, they knew that they were on, and it was much even dicier than we knew on the show because of the way that they did this. The way that they had to make this work was that they did the actual challenge something at they had to start by 7 a.m. in Borneo, which means they had to, start the whole process of getting everybody together and the cameras and all that very, very early before sunrise. Mm-hmm. And they had to finish it by 8 a.m. Borneo time, because that was, I guess, 6 p.m. LA time. Point is that while this challenge was taking place, each of the remaining castaways, and there were 6 of them, has a loved one in a hotel in LA, waiting to see the results of this competition, because whoever did win this reward competition, they immediately, literally, they got the result. This person immediately jumped into the limo. They went straight to the airport. They almost didn't make the flight because it did end up, they were about half an hour behind schedule. And in this case, that would have been a huge problem. But I don't know if the flight was a little bit delayed or whatever, but Sean's father was able to get on that flight. And that's why we saw Sean on the boat and having his champagne and his fruit and his massage, all of that needed to happen so that they could get his father onto that boat in time for them to I'm sorry. Somebody's at my door. Discuss.
I'm sorry. No, go to the door for a second. Okay. So that explains that bit.
And what they'll do now is they'll have the family challenge where they'll bring everybody, but they will also have the last person who's been eliminated before the family challenge, their loved one is also still in, because they don't know who's going to be eliminated just before they do the family challenge. So there's 9 people left. They bring them in, and we'll do the family at 8, but we get all 9 of them here, and we know that they're here. again, so they don't have another one of those Jenna situations from earlier this season where it's like, no one wanted to come for you. Which, although that would be great television, I do think they would not do that in today's day and age.
Yeah. But the other thing that's really irritated me about this episode, so number one, you calmed my nerves beautifully, Karen, about that with this explanation, which frankly should have been in subtitles on the bottom of the screen, because I was practically throwing things at the screen.
No, and your hesitation and your skepticism are well placed, but in this particular case, because also, like I said, I was asking, how does this time frame work?
Yeah.
And the answer is this does seem to be legit. It is not their boat, right? They really did fly him in. By the way, so all that knocking on my doors, they're claiming that there is now water leaking into the condo below mine.
Oh, my goodness.
I told them to go away, but I may have to go out at some point and deal with that.
Oh, my goodness. So there we were talking about the Tower of Babel, but in fact, you're getting the deluge.
Something like that, yeah. So
my second gripe with this episode is over the trivia game, and I got so excited by those questions. We got 2 questions, and then everything else was muted, and we just had people moving randomly around their board. And I was thinking, I want to hear these questions. I want to know all about what happens in the inside of Bamboo, and these terribly clever questions which they're getting right or wrong. But the production didn't seem to think I mattered.
Well, I think they just probably wanted to kind of edit it down, but
yes, but it was the most exciting bit of the game. That was a game I really enjoyed, rather like the game with the great big puzzle on the beach, which Rudy won. I enjoyed that as well.
Tim, as much as I agree with you that generally speaking, I much would prefer some more intellectual games thrown in rather than just the brute force tug of wars and things like that. American audiences as a collective would have changed the channel. And I'm
so sorry.
We don't have shows like QI here in America. That would never work here because most people are stupid.
Well, the same thing probably would be true be true of Britain, if not worse. I just hope there'd be a producer here who would sort of run this thing through, because we've chosen these incredibly complicated questions. We will give them to the audience, because otherwise there'll be someone like Tim whinging about not hearing them.
Yeah, it's just not an American thing for.
It turned from a very interesting trivia question to some sort of ballet.
And I would say just personally, although that is something that I would enjoy, I run a trivia podcast. I enjoy trivia.
Yeah, you see.
But
you wouldn't need to run a trivia podcast if Survivor did its game properly.
But I will say I don't think trivia questions like this have a place on Survivor. I think it's the wrong skill set for determining a winner of this show and this competition. Right. If it's trivia about the other players, then that's a different story. If it's like, how much do you know these people who you've lived with for a month? I think that kind of thing is really cool.
But that in itself is interesting, isn't it?
And they have done versions of that.
Yeah, I like that. Are you aware when is Steve's birthday?
Right. And that kind of stuff I'm fine with. When it's like, hey, what's the capital of Fiji? It's like, all right, you know what? That's not really what Survivor's about. And so to me also it's like, hey, he's a medical doctor. Let's ask a medical question. It's like,
yeah, right.
So,
that was the one thing.
The third point.
Yeah, but this did surprise me. I mean, so Tim, we know that you know everything, and AJ, we know that you're a trivia. Did either of you know that you're supposed to drink kerosene? What is this, to get rid of certain parasite? Is that really a thing?
As I cannot remember the names of my neighbors who I've lived next to for 17 years, but I remembered the answer to that question when I rewatched it. So I don't remember if I ever knew that before this, but watching oh yeah, this is a kerosene question. Like I have an affinity for remembering stuff like that, so I can't really answer you.
Right. It just never seemed to me that drinking kerosene is ever a good idea.
There is a final point to my griping, and that is if. Ooh, how exciting! I'm getting a message from Woody saying, "See you then on Thursday." So I'm going down to Brighton to see Woody. What? No, the third gripe that I've got is, what was it now? Yeah, if I were writing trivia questions for Survival, which obviously now I'm not going to be doing because they don't like them, which is a great shame. The one thing, my one contribution to this great to this great program has just been destroyed by AJ. Then the point is, I could quietly, rather like any good magician, I could quite quietly find out what are the subjects that Sean knows, and I could make sure that he wins without him realizing, without anybody else realizing. So I could fix the game. How do we know that didn't happen? Because that was what I assumed. I assumed the game had been fixed. Sean's father was sitting in the boat. Sean won. Everybody's surprised, and then his father turns up. And frankly, if I had been playing the game, even though I've now had the explanation from Karen, I would have thought that. Yeah. And I would have been very.
So, I mean, if they were to fix this, would they fix it for Sean? I mean, that's the other problem. If they got to the
trouble to get Sean's father in the boat, yes, absolutely. And it wouldn't be that difficult to fix. I mean, has nobody seen a decent magician or a decent sort of...
so we've got David Blaine will conjure.
David Blaine will be our consultant on today's Survivor.
I will say that in today's day and age, like, again, this was a show that was in its first year and no one was really watching probably. It's become such a international sensation that the network itself would not allow that to happen. They're not going to allow fixing of the show. The federal government will get involved. There are certain laws about competitions of this nature, and it's not like they're going to regulate who wins contests. But if there's any suspicion that the producers are making sure that certain contestants win and that it's not fair, there's just too much of a financial loss and federal lawsuits that can be made that it's not going to happen like that. Even when you think it, even though you can watch it and go, I don't know, they're not fixing the results.
Not to disrespect, like we talked about, what happened with Stacey Stillman and the possibility that they said,
they weren't watching. I get it.
That's different. But something like this, I'm saying this level of blatant cheating, ever since the quiz show scandals, right? Like back in the 60s.
And later, actually,
Yeah.
But the quiz shows that we've had over here have been less about the producers cheating and more about contestants cheating.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Me. Yes, exactly. You're talking. We are indeed.
Clearly, the fact that I did so poorly on AJ's quiz show was just because he picked out all these questions that were horribly difficult for me. Right? It's your fault, AJ. It's not my. The problem is that I know nothing.
And that was completely intentional.
Karen, I always assume you know everything. And Karen has looked after me so well over these weeks. I actively look forward to a Tuesday evening.
I do think it's important, though, to talk about, because this becomes quite important, that Sean's whole decision about taking Kelly versus taking Rich. We started talking about this, and then we got off track, and I had banging on my
I'm sorry.
So but this is something I think we should focus on, because this is the kind of thing that can make a huge difference in the game. Right. Now, what do you think, AJ? Kelly clearly thinks that they had an agreement, right?
Well, he says it earlier that day. Like, I still owe you the dinner. I still owe you the dinner. I still owe you.
Yeah.
I mean, basically, and yes, they can edit shows and place quotes out of order. I get that. Maybe it was after. But regardless, they have the footage of him saying it, so it was still forefront of his mind. Once you're doing that, there is no way that you can pick anybody else. And he compounds his mistake by doing that very passive, aggressive, misogynist thing of saying, well, you tell me, Cal, you want to come? I'll take you.
Right.
Which guarantees that she's going to vote against him and vote him off. I mean, it all but guarantees it. It's Colleen's already going to vote against him because it's pretty much her or Sean. We know that.
Right.
But by doing that in front of Sue, I mean, he's potentially getting Sue to say, hell with it, let's vote him off now. Look at what he did, the douchebag,
But we've also got Sue saying, she says, get some balls. I don't know whether she wants to play tennis.
I don't think that's what he's referring to.
I know.
Yeah. I think
exactly
Colleen and Sue.
He didn't just come out and say Rich,
Yeah, but you see, I got the impression both the girls were saying something to him at that moment. We just focused on Sue saying it, but I had the impression Kelly was saying something as well, and Sean in a sort of panic, don't know what to do. I sort of chooses the only alternative, which is Rich. I mean, would he want to spend a morning with Rudy? Probably not. So Rich is the obvious choice. I would have chosen Rich.
No. Well, I
wouldn't have thought if I hadn't thought of the consequences. The consequences are disastrous.
Sure, but I just think if you've been saying to how many people are left at this point? It's not like it's the beginning of the game. There are so few people left at this point.
Yeah,
and
look, I agree entirely, but you keep your word, and I don't think my word is my bond counts for very much in survival, and I think they're all realizing how dangerous it is. Once your word means nothing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think this is, I think you give your word, that is it. Bang.
And so when he says, Kelly, I'm going to take you, and then, gets to the point, all right, pick somebody. Kelly, do you want to go? And then Sue's like, just have some balls and make your picks. I'll say you're taking Kelly. He's like, come on, Rich, you're coming. Like, I mean, that's
right.
It's like, here you go. You want?
Who did Kelly vote for in the end?
Kelly did vote for Sean.
Well done, and everybody else should have done as well. It was a disgraceful, and I think didn't Rich also vote for Sean?
No.
Yeah, he didn't.
No,
it's just Colleen and Kelly were the only two who voted for Sean, and the alliance of three without Kelly stayed strong. I mean, we could discuss whether or not that was the right thing to do, but
AJ, why do you think Sean made this choice other than just sheer stupidity? Do you have any idea why he felt this was a good idea?
I think that he was reading the room correctly, that Richard is in charge. Richard, it's not like he's unaware that Richard's been kind of running the show and kind of been hand-holding Rudy and Sue along the whole time. And, this is a point where Sue could very easily have just said, Rich, no, I'm putting my foot down and this is what we're doing. And I actually think Richard would probably have gone along with it because it's not worth it.
Especially if they just voted off Sean. He
doesn't care. Yeah. He doesn't care. He could even get away with saying, you know what, you three, you guys all go ahead and vote for him. I'm not going to do it because he took me on the boat. He has an out if that's what he doesn't want to do. But I just think Richard doesn't care. He's like, if we vote out Sean now, we'll vote out Colleen next week. She's not going to win anything.
He was quite happy to say he would vote out Sean.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And Sean is right in his read that Rich is in charge, and Rudy doesn't care.
Wrong in A, not keeping his word.
Yeah.
And B, and B, in thinking that giving Richard some scrambled egg is going to influence him.
On top of that, look what he's doing. He's like, all right, Rich, come with me on the boat. Goodbye, Kelly, Colleen, and Sue sitting there on the beach with enough votes to vote me out. Why don't you talk amongst yourselves after I just made an ass of myself in front of you?
The only thing I do have to say, though, in order to defend Sean, and again, this will be the first and last time probably I'm going to defend Sean's game, but the argument for what he's doing, and it's not a great argument, but he's finally woken up on day 31, and he's actually playing the game, right? He's realized that Rich is the one who holds the power. I mean, it was a boneheaded move, but ironically, right? Maybe he probably wouldn't have made the same decision a day or two previous, right? He would have just, I want to be friends with everybody, and I promise Kelly. But he's the one. He woke up. He said, Kelly is not the seat of power here. Rich is the seat of power, and so I'm going to.
But he had
my own game.
If he hadn't, if he hadn't said anything stupid to Kelly, which really is the problem, he could have got away with Rich.
Yes,
simply by saying Rich came second.
Exactly. Rich came second.
He never said that.
Rich has been feeding me the whole time. Like, he came up with that as an excuse after the fact, but
he talked about all of these things came out at Tribal, but none of them were said at the time.
Exactly, and that's and
let's read this Callier. We're dominated by things we ought to have said at the time, and the intelligent person is somebody who is clever enough to have said this at the time.
Right.
And Sean is supposed to be a brain surgeon. I don't want to surrender my brain to his skill.
I mean, I can see, Karen, what you're saying, and that he could have it so locked in his head that, hey, we said we were voting out all the Pagongs. There's one Pagong left. I don't have to worry about what I do this week because I'm not going home. We all know Colleen's going home. I mean, I can see him having that mindset, but that makes the fact that he's woken up even more of a negative point on his card. Because if he's woken up and still thinking that it's definitely got to go, then he's totally wrong.
I spent most of the episode thinking that Sean was on his way out. By the way, reading the way it was edited, but I also felt, although Sean comes across as a twit. Is that a word I can use?
Yes.
Yeah.
This is Survivor NSFW. You can say whatever you want.
Well, no, I'm not so worried about causing offence. I'm worried about comprehension. But
I'm a Monty Python fan. I'm very well aware of it.
If I changed the vowel in there, I think I would have had a little bit more of a problem.
Yeah.
But the
it's not so far off. But anyway.
No, it's not. I mean, between friends, sometimes I have problems with my vowels.
If you say "at," you're fine. If you say "ot," you'd be in trouble.
But the real problem for me with Sean is, although he comes across as a twit and somebody who's a bit oddly slow, he also comes across as extraordinarily endearing. And this was the episode where I thought he was at his most lovable. And we also then, once I decided I loved Sean today, which I'd been worrying about over the last few weeks anyway. But once I decided I loved him, and I felt sorry for him because he's such a twit and a klutz and all these sort of things. I then got to see him through his father's eyes, and it was so warm. And his father was at his best, I think, on the boat. When he actually got onto the island, it was as gauche and twittish as his son, frankly. And it was a bit embarrassing, but then also equally rather endearing. Obviously, that runs in the family. So the more ridiculous one is, the more endearing one is. It's something,
and it's always fun to see. Like I said, we saw Greg's sister and said, "Oh yeah, clearly they grew up in the same household."
Yeah,
and kind of the same thing for this. But one of the things that I did find in my reading this week, I never noticed this before. So this is in the front of Mark Burnett's book. He has the castaways, and he has these brief, bios, and each of them has a quote. So I'm assuming that this was probably used like in the marketing materials for the season, again, because I did not watch the season in real time. I'm not privy to everything that was put out. But with the quotes, some of them were just very interesting. And for Sean, that's why I had to share this with you. So Sean's quote is, "The party doesn't go on without me. I like it that way." And that's Sean.
There you go, but he doesn't strike me as a party boy.
But I think he is. I think that's the point. Is he might be a doctor, right? But he still knows his way around a party.
Well, doctors always do the best parties, and they do the best drama and the best jokes. I mean, I love being among doctors, but I would be very, very cautious about brain surgery.
Yeah, the other one. So it's just a couple of these to flag. Is this I found also very interesting with Kelly Wigglesworth, and again they remind us again that she's only 22. Which I tend to forget right?
Yeah.
Because she doesn't come across as 21. But her quote is, I do get irritable when people get in my way, but I don't have the rage I used to. And that really struck me. I did not see Kelly Wigglesworth as a woman who has a problem with rage. But clearly there is a level, something about her that we did not know.
Mm-hmm. And it's possible that part of what sets her off, and I'm reading way too much into this, but if she's tired of getting pushed around by men, with the misogyny that's definitely out there, something like this is definitely going to make her say, screw Richard, who's telling me to vote for Colleen, Sean for telling me I got to beg for the lunch that he owes me. Like, no, I'm vote him out.
I wouldn't have begged for that lunch. I would say, go and eat it all yourself. I'm not coming with you even if you ask me.
Right, and she just basically, your call, man. She didn't say no. She didn't beg for it, which good for her. But it was just like, dude, just pick me or don't, but don't put it on me like that.
Right. Yeah, like you said, he made this worse, and then he made it worse again, and then he continued to make it worse.
Yeah, I would have made sure he was off by the end of the day. Mm-hmm. I would have made sure.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have been treated like that, and I wouldn't have let anybody else be treated like that, I'm afraid.
Right. Yeah.
I thought, however endearing he is, he was stupid, and he was ungallant. Is it ungallant?
Mm-hmm.
Disgallant? Ungallant.
Ungallant. Is that a word? Gallant is certainly a
gallant is a word. So
I was not sure that ungallant.
Very goofus.
Maybe there is no negative of ungallant. Maybe it just doesn't exist. Maybe
goofus might be as good an answer as any.
Goofus.
Again, this is an Americanism that Tim may not be familiar.
I have heard it. Doofus. I remember when I was little, and I was given a copy of The Art of Walt Disney, the old Field book, which was published in the 1940s. I thought this was wonderful. Mm-hmm. And then I turned, and there were all these pages of conversations that Disney was having with his animators, and one of them was going on and on about people falling on their fannies, which I thought was very improbable. And I'm sorry, I'm going too far on that. Stop there before I get into so much trouble. I do find Americanism so fascinating. For example, you have words like gobbledygook and zilch, which I think are great. These are a great introduction to. I'm afraid it would be Webster's in your case, but in my case, it's the Oxford English Dictionary. But I do think they're very good.
I think part of my biggest delight of watching all the different versions of the circle from around the world is the choices of hashtags that each country chooses, and you learn a lot from, because in America you probably do hashtag gobbledygook.
I would use that happily. Embrace things from other countries. You take the best from every culture.
Yeah, I know what grime is now thanks to the Circle UK. So
I think I want part. Yeah. I do know what grime is because we've been dealing with the grime problem recently, but yes, I'm learning all about rap and grime and house and all the. I'm having such an education. It's wonderful. The moment you think your education is over and I've got my degree. It's just the beginning, really. Actually, I did very little education at university.
No, but I feel like that's how you stay young. That's how people stay young in general, and you in particular, right? You never stop learning.
Never stop learning. And the other thing is, I get so frustrated by people who think there's a block of stuff which is there to learn, and there's a block of stuff which is on that side which is not there to learn. So you've got a block of stuff here and a block of stuff there, and this side here is the ephemera and is the irrelevant of the stuff you're actually going to bin. And this stuff seems to me to be absolutely fascinating because this is the stuff that life is made of, the ephemera. And I wish I had sort of racks of things like you've got behind you. Whereas I've just got piles of papers and rubbish in the back. And all the pencils and pens that no longer work.
Which you should throw around and you don't, exactly.
So I'm trying. What if anything else we should discuss about Sean, the boat, etc.? When Dad comes back, he does bring care packages for everybody. I was trying to figure out who got what, and mostly I was unsuccessful. But we did see Rudy with that little. It looks like a hat with a fan in it. Did anyone catch that?
Not remotely.
Okay. He's wearing like a baseball cap, and I've seen things like this where it's a little fan in it. I'm not 100% sure what it is, but that's my
and those do nothing.
Right.
Because to take it back to me, in the original Mr. Met costume, we had one of those little fans in there, and
you did, and
did not cool me off one iota. So.
No, I'm sure.
I mean, it's 120 degrees and humid. There's a limit to what it's going to do.
Yeah, which is why they allowed him to get it.
This is the man who walks around with a great sort of ball over his head.
Yeah,
right.
A long time ago, Tim. Long time ago.
I'm sorry. So those of us who are now worried about wearing little masks should go to AJ, and we should.
Well, look, I'm moving my camera because I realized one of the books that I use to prop up my laptop is. Yes,
there you are. There you are.
AJ's book.
That's my book.
Yep,
that's your book.
One of them. One of my two books.
And you can see on the back, Tim, that is a picture of Mr. Bat from the back. But it gives you an idea.
I really wouldn't know whether it was the back or the front. I don't suppose.
On the back it has a face. It is a baseball, but he does have a face. So now, I just have to ask. So AJ, is your head in Mr. Red's head, or is the entire head above, and you're basically seeing out of his neck? I should know this, but.
Well, I'm looking out of his mouth.
You're talking out of his mouth. Okay.
But
and then you that very large head. Above.
Yeah, so when Mr. Met goes to cover his eyes to play peekaboo, he goes like this.
All right.
His head.
Did you could do Mickey Mouse and sort of all these other things as well?
I'm probably too tall to do Mickey Mouse, but yeah. So, but my fingers are still stuck like this years later. And this, for those of you on the video feed, because this is how Mr. Met only has 4 fingers, so
Oh, yeah, like The Simpsons.
And I can write like this, with it and everything. But
yeah. Oh my goodness.
And I can Mr. Spock. But anyway.
Yeah. you know, all of this was simply to save Disney money, don't you? Because then you don't have to animate an extra digit, which doesn't do very much anyway. You always move your fingers together as a sort of group. It's only this one which works independently in this one. These other two tend to work together.
And on The Simpsons, only one character has 5 fingers, whereas everyone else has 4.
Who else has 5? Who has 5 in The Simpsons?
Anytime they show God.
Oh, really? God has 5 fingers?
God is the animator, and the animator has 5 fingers.
Right. Oh my goodness!
All right.
Yeah, I've never noticed that. I like The Simpsons, and I like Family Guy. I think they're great contributions to art.
I would not have expected you to use the sentence "Family Guy" and art coming from you in the same 100%. Sentence.
Animation, I just think it's so. It's my craft anyway, to start with. Right. But it's also, I just admire the artistry of getting from one side of the screen to another side of the screen, doing something interesting in the process. And Family Guy does it all the time, and early Simpsons do it all the time. Later Simpsons are a little bit sort of vague, but Family Guy still does it for me. And these are programs which are led by the voice, and in a way, they can get by like the Flintstones without actually bothering with the visuals very much, but they do bother, and I find that so rewarding. That there is my craft on the screen, and people are still enjoying it today. Even when
I can only imagine, Tim, that you're not a big fan of Scooby-Doo for the repeated
I
7
used to watch
frames
Scooby-Doo
of walking.
with great pleasure.
I used to love that show as a kid.
And all these wonderful things. I remember there was one about Journey to the Center of the Earth, which was very limited animation. But tremendous fun. And I love the fact that Scooby-Doo was completely predictable.
Mm-hmm. Well, for children's programming, right? That's kind of children like it when the outcome is predictable.
Well, not only children. I remember when I was first expected to lecture and give big lectures. And I said to I went to my tutor, who was a sort of the bishop of Oxford, where he was the Greek bishop of Oxford, and he has a very mannered delivery in English and in Greek and in Russian. And I said to him, what should I do? Do you have any advice? He says, yes, it is always a good idea to tell people what they already know. They like it. And I thought, yep, okay, good advice. Tell them what they know, and then add a few bits and pieces. And
they'll respond to it positively, because the first part they've bit. That's
yes. Tell somebody what they know, and they're delighted. They feel that you're paying attention to them. So if you want to give a lecture, find out what everybody knows, and then just tell them what they know.
All right. So we say goodbye to Sean.
The worst thing about lectures, and the worst thing about television, and the worst thing about entertainment in general, is to tell people new things, because actually we've only got a very limited range of interest, and so the best thing is to tell people what they already know many times in different ways.
Right. Well, my father's used to say that because he would also, give lectures. He was a businessman. He wasn't an academic, but he would have to speak. And he said, there's 3 parts of any lecture. Tell people what you're going to tell them, then tell them, and then tell them what you're going to tell. Well, you just told them.
Yes. I bored with that formula, so I tend to free rein. I go off piste. Some people would say I'm piste anyway, but it just sort of. Sorry, but I'm not. Never. But I tend to go off piste a little bit, because I think that if you're in academia, you are really the entertainment. Sometimes the clown, and Boris picked up on that one. But whether you're in entertainment or in politics, whether you're in academia or in politics, or actually on the TV, you are really entertaining. If you don't recognize that, then you missed it. So I would say, to slightly modify your father's formula, you have to leave the audience wanting more.
Right.
Bay.
And he did not teach me this part, but it makes perfect sense that you begin with a statement that they're going to agree with.
Absolutely.
So
it's like if you're a teacher. So in Russia, I was teaching teachers how to teach. Quite a lot of the time, and one of my tricks was when with new teachers, and they're also so anxious, and they're all sitting in this huge lecture room, and I say, well, look, the most important thing is you stand at the door, as I did when you all come in, so you all know it's my lecture room. And then when you sit down, you tell everybody to take off their coats. And they said, why do you do that? I said, well, you're going to do it anyway. But the moment I tell you to do it, you feel that you're commanded by me. And it's so wonderful that you do what I tell you to do. And it sort of sets the tone. First of all, you're entering my room, which you've got to do anyway. But you feel that it's my room because I'm standing at the door. And then I tell you to do something that you're going to do anyway as well. I mean, it's just, it's wonderful. And I'm sure... production on things like Survivor are playing with those sort of conventions as well. And Rich, I think, is 4 times ahead of everybody else. He knows his psychology in this sort of way. And this is where Sean just got it so wrong.
Right.
I think because he's not. He may be playing the game, but he's
I'm not saying Sean made the right decision. I'm just saying for the first time in 31 days, Sean seems to have woken up and realized that he is in fact playing a game, right? And he has identified the seat of power.
Yeah.
Now, what he did with that information was wrong, right? But I've been calling him, PDSS, I've been calling him poor, dumb, sweet Sean for 11 episodes. And so I just want to hand it to him when he actually wakes up and makes a partially, maybe, it's not really going to call it a partially correct decision, but
yes. But then what I find so fascinating at the end of the program, when we go to tribal council.
Well, we're going to get, before we get to that though, Tim, let me just talk about the immunity challenge. Just briefly, and then we'll get to tribal.
Can I just quickly go to tribal council, because it is relevant here. But Jeff then tries to give the impression that Rich is in danger?
Well, I mean, you always want to do that, just in general, right? Jeff always wants the viewer to feel as if this was not recorded.
This is desperate filming if he wants to give the impression Rich is in any danger. Rich is in no danger at all.
Of course, but we had a whole episode, I think 2 episodes ago, right, where it was the same thing, that they did everything possible to make us think that Rich might be in danger.
Yes.
Right.
But and I don't think he felt in any way that he was in any danger. It's a sort of paper tiger, silly. Let's go. Let's go back. AJ has got a glazed look on his face.
I just get there when we get there. That's all.
Just wanted to talk very briefly about the immunity.
How do you know British culture so well? Have you been here?
I have not. I've just always been a fan. I have Acorn TV here on my.
Do you really?
I do. I watch a lot of stuff with David Tennant in it, and
David Tennant, wonderful.
I'm a big fan. David Tennant, who of course looks a lot to me like Sammy from your season.
You mean beautiful and rugged? Yes.
Yeah. I was watching. I go, hey, the guy playing Sammy is David Tennant.
I think David Tennant is shorter.
Possible.
Yeah.
No, I've just always been a big fan from back in the day. We used to get like Monty Python and Allo on the TV where I work.
Hello.
Oh, love.
With Richard Gibson. And
one of the best sitcoms that no one in America knows about.
It's one of the best.
It's actually the opposite of the Tower of Babel example you gave before, because they're all speaking English, but none of them understand each other.
Yeah, and the wonderful man who is it the postman who tries to speak French? And I was pissing by your door.
Exactly. Good morning.
I will say this only once. No, that's not Herr Flick's line, is it?
That's the female spy. Yeah.
But with the immunity challenge, I was just so excited for about 2 seconds because they called it walk the plank. Right.
Yeah.
And I thought, they're going to do something and jump into the ocean from a great height or something like that. But no, they're just standing, a few meters from shore on basically what's a balance beam. You have several planks that I guess were kind of loosely fastened together, but not really. And so the thing is, I don't know, 6 inches wide or so. It's fairly easy. And then as time goes on, they remove the planks, right?
And not just they remove the planks.
6 inches can be quite important for some people.
Right, I know. Which is, again, this is the kind of thing that I'm sure for Tim doesn't really register, but for the rest of us, after season 1, you never see Jeff, in the water.
In the water. Yes.
Right, yes. There are people for that now, but in season 1, right, they needed something that had to be moved in the middle of the challenge, so he got to do it.
So who would do it normally now?
We wouldn't even see it. There would
be
unknown little gnomes that will just remove it, and it would never make
they come off Stephen Fry's QI and go on to Survivor.
And they could have done the same thing here. We wouldn't have had to have seen Probst moving those boards if they didn't want us to, but it was fine.
Well, I think he was making so much effort. I think he wanted people to notice. I suspect he's a little bit needy. I mean, he and I would get on terribly well. We'd be very competitive. I'm in the water. You're going to film me, damn you! Look, I'm all wet.
Yeah, but it is a challenge where it's a lot of people just standing in one place for a long period of time.
Yes, it could have been so boring without the 1 hour 20 minutes.
It was fairly boring, but of course. The other thing that we learned, is that Colleen cannot sing. Not even close, right? She, when they started with the 100 bottles of beer on the wall, Colleen is kind of screaming off key, right? I guess this was her way. She was trying to look that she was enthusiastic, but if you actually watched her face, she was not enjoying any of this.
So after Survivor, she goes off and she does television or theater.
She does a movie called The Animal.
All right, I see.
Yeah.
I see.
and then has fallen off the face of the earth, as far as anyone can tell. So we watched this for 2 hours and 54 minutes.
So she's not going to be in Survivor the musical.
No, and she also does not come back for later seasons. I'm sure that she would have been invited, or she was invited, but she and Greg have never been back. And I'm sure that is a decision on their part and not of producers, because I'm sure.
And are they the only two who've never been back?
Of the post-merge, I'm saying, so who have we seen? From Greg, so Gretchen we haven't seen, but from Gretchen's boot on, Greg will be back, Jenna will be back, Jervis will be back. Am I forgetting anybody else, AJ? Post-merge, other than Gretchen, everybody at least had the option. And I'm assuming Gretchen probably also got an invite, I would guess.
I'm sure they were all asked, absolutely, especially for that, or at least we're in the player pool for the first All-Star season. Absolutely. It's just a question of, how many did they want to take, and,
Right. Did they have any idea while they were on the show how big this was going to become?
Oh, I don't think so. I don't think Mark Burnett had any idea. And he had done other television programs, right?
And,
so
and
he's hoping he's going to have a show, but he had no idea that they had 51 million people watching the finale. Yeah. I don't think even him.
In the period between filming it and broadcasting it, did they have any idea?
I think they might have had hopes. I think when they finished filming the entire season, I think they knew it had gone well, and they had.
How long was it between filming and broadcasting?
That I don't know. I don't recall.
Right. I don't know the exact dates. I want to say it's a few months because it was aired in the summer, and so in terms of what their hopes were, when you put a show on in the summer, right, that generally is not going to be your big hit, right, and that's why they ended up repeating it again in the fall.
Right.
Because this was before you obviously, now it's very easy to catch up on old episodes. You go on CBS All Access, or you buy a season on DVD or whatever. Back then, if you missed it when it aired in 2000, you did not really have a good way to catch up. So they actually ended up re-airing the entire season again, which has never happened.
Yeah. Just to give you my own personal connection with the show. I mean, I was engaged at the time, and my now wife, we watched every episode. We loved it so much that we actually made the Survivor theme our recessional at our wedding. We got married that October. No. And so, now pronounced man and wife, and we left to and everyone went nuts and thought it was hysterical because, it was that popular that even our older relatives knew exactly what that music was.
How lovely.
That's some serious Survivor fan cred.
Oh yeah, we were. I got the board game. We got the board game as a gift, and we never opened it, but we have it. Yeah.
Right.
So we're gonna get to trouble, but again, just one other thing, because AJ, I'm assuming you noticed this, and Tim again probably did not. Oh, that's the board game, or that's
no, this is my Survivor Africa buff.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
We were all in from the beginning. Yeah.
But then so we have the challenge, right? Kelly wins it, and then Probst comes up and gives Kelly a pair of Dr. Scholl's inserts.
Oh yes,
right?
That was the lamest product placement I have ever seen on this show.
Yeah, and it was so they had them from Dr. Scholl's, and they said, so at some point when somebody starts complaining that their feet hurt, here you can produce these.
Yeah.
But she wasn't even saying that her feet hurt. I don't remember exactly what Probst said, but something going on. Your feet must be sore from that. So here, take some Dr. Scholl's inserts.
They thought that it was going to be a struggle to get advertising for this show, and they were doing product placement and getting sponsorship. I mean, we're at the point now where they will build whole challenges around. It's the Outback Steakhouse Challenge, and the winner gets to eat Outback Steakhouse food. But back then, it was just and Dr. Scholl's, here you go.
Right. But again, they could have.
Yeah, here you go. Here's the inserts.
Right, they could have given them to her, right, and not put it on the show. But clearly, like you said, this was some kind of a sponsor product placement thing. It was I just found it very, very weird. I mean, we've seen some weird product placement on the show, but this might be the weirdest.
Yeah. Are you going to be wearing shoes?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so what if she had said no?
Yeah.
Well, you should, and when you wear them, you should put in.
Exactly. Or maybe you can think of putting these somewhere else.
I know where she'd like to insert it. Sean, come here.
And I'm also just
And if you get hungry, if you get particularly hungry, yeah.
and also, what else could you use them for? I mean, like, did they give a pair to everybody?
Paddling. You could
cut it up and use
go
it
out to the
for
boat.
stickers, or I don't know.
I don't know.
I got nothing. I just had to. It was so weird. I just had to flag it.
Yeah, I had forgotten about it because I watched a few weeks ago. But
you use them to stop the rain.
Right.
Open them up. Yeah.
Yeah, but they have to get the
Modest
very
umbrella.
large Dr. Scholl's, and they just use that as a tarp, right? Rather than
No, I think we just think that is rather small.
I'm just being silly.
I mean, there was a challenge. They probably were hoping that Sean would have won, so they said, "Hey, Dr. Sean, how about Dr. Scholl?" From one doctor to another, I approve.
Although they really need to cast a podiatrist, right? Because a neurologist
massage was a bit much.
Yeah.
And the line, he's probably never had a massage, and now he is having a massage.
I think he said it was his first massage ever.
Yeah, absolutely. We had all that detail. It just seemed extraordinary.
Right.
So
we get to tribal, and Probst asks a question that is actually, a good question, for which I'd really like to hear the answer is, Sean, why did you change your pick for breakfast? Right. And now with 2020 hindsight, he's come up with this, well, Rich feeds all of us. He really wanted it. He really wanted scrambled eggs. Yeah.
He eats like a horse.
Right. Yeah. Because he just, and the thing that Rich has been missing for 31 days clearly is scrambled eggs. I'm not buying it.
Well, that's because they didn't treat the chickens properly. They could have still had scrambled eggs if they treated the chickens correctly.
Right. And then Probst says, Probst did point out to Rich, he said that, look, the alphabet system saved you, right? If it weren't for the alphabet system, Probst is making the argument that he would have been gone rather than Jenna. Again, AJ, I'm assuming you had the same reaction to this that I had, which is what?
Yes, I was completely. It's because his surname is Hatch, isn't it?
I just think that he was trying to, again, build some drama.
Mm-hmm.
They knew that Rich was not, like you said, Tim, they knew Rich was not in trouble. So bring up the fact, you got votes before and you were nearly getting voted out, and, you didn't win immunity this time, but you came in second. So maybe you were close and you got to be fed, and they could. I think he was just trying to stir the pot a little bit.
I think he should have concentrated on the inserts. Are they working? Are you feeling good?
But again, these prep councils do go on for hours and hours, and we only see a small little snippet of it.
We should have seen the shoes. We should have seen.
Yeah,
we should have seen the inserts. Yeah.
Right.
The inserts. Sorry.
And
Rich, I don't think you have a leg to stand on, but if you did have a leg to stand on,
yeah, he could have been wearing.
I'm just imagining the ad where Rich is wearing only right?
Yeah.
In various places.
I don't wear much.
But I
always wear my shorts.
Richard, yes. These just about cover it. I might eat like a horse, but I'm definitely not hung like one. Oh, sorry.
I'm looking at the pixelated version of it, Tim. I'm not sure if you have access to a different feed.
I've got such a bad image. Everything is sort of blur, really. So when they blur something, it just sort of increases the inability to actually. I watch something on my screen is only about 2 inches by 3 inches.
Oh, so then how could you possibly know how big the blur was?
I can't. I'm just guessing. I'm just guessing.
So
maybe I'm being cruel, Rich. I'm sure you're blessed as nature intended, and we are all in awe.
And I'm sure that given how he feels about wearing clothing, I'm sure that he would be more than happy to
demonstrate,
confirm to you that nothing has changed.
I'm itching for a revelation.
Well, we'll see. We'll see what we can do as the season goes on.
Well, I look forward. We've only got two more episodes. One of them is going to have to be graced by Rich, and I look forward to that enormously. He's still here. He's still here. It's lovely. I enjoy Rich. I enjoy him. I thought I would enjoy Rudy more, but in fact, Rudy's become a bit dull. And Rich, I just think is, I thought today there's sort of naughty, there's sort of nastiness about Rich, where he goes for Sean, but it doesn't come across as nasty. It comes across as slightly naughty, and it comes across to me as somebody with a twinkle in his eye. I could deal with Rich. I think he's eminently dealable with.
I do agree with you in the sense, Tim, that I do think like Rich is in on the joke, right? Yeah. And he enjoys other people who are also in on the joke.
And also today we saw the sort of vulnerable side of Rich, which is very sweet, where he talks about missing home. He talks about being miserable. The fact that he makes everybody else's life miserable on the beach is neither here nor there, but he does start off with this sort of perspective of him that he's missing, that he's feeling miserable and wet, and
right. And they don't really, and they also didn't really flag this, but Rich is also a parent, right?
Yes, I know.
He talks about getting a letter from his friend, but I would think that he was also looking for some news of his son.
Well, in one of the first episodes, we saw the message from his son, and his son is absolutely wonderful. If I were one of the producers, I would get his son on the show very quickly, because his son is bright, clever. His son would win.
Yeah, and you did ask me. There has never been a Survivor player. There has not been the second generation. There have been 2 seasons called Blood versus Water, where one of them where people who have played Survivor previously brought a family member. But we have not seen. But there, I don't know with Rich, but there have been other like Jane Power's son Boston or Cerie's son. There have been characters over the years where their children have turned into characters of themselves. Right? Again, often they're on the family visit, whatever. But unfortunately, we haven't seen any of them play yet either. But it could happen. Yeah, I mean, the show has been on for 20 years, right?
His son is 27 or something now.
I think his son was around 9 when he played, but 29. Yeah, perfect age to. Unfortunately, I don't think that Richard Hatch's son is going to want to have much to do with Survivor.
Really?
Unfortunately, yeah, I don't think Rich has warm and fuzzy feelings about Survivor anymore.
Rich?
Yeah, because we are.
I want to meet him even more now. Why is he so negative? What has changed?
Who was it? Rich, was it you that you said that you're not enjoying Rudy as much? I'm enjoying Rudy a great deal.
Yeah, I'm not enjoying Rudy as much.
Really?
No, I'm finding Rudy sort of one-dimensional, whereas Rudy had all this opportunity before. And
what did you say, AJ?
He was a little grumpy this episode, Rudy, and I haven't revisited this season in many years, and I was just like, oh, this is not a very heavy Rudy episode. He's just kind of like, he wasn't even there for most of it.
Yeah, Rudy's always grumpy, but grumpy Rudy is the best Rudy.
There's grumpy Rudy, and there's
grumpy Rudy with content. There was no content here today, and it was sort of slightly dull.
I said that coming in, that there just was not a whole lot to this episode.
Yeah, but you see, when somebody is grumpy, when you got a grumpy Rudy or somebody, it's endearing, because you think, "Ooh, that could be me in a couple of years," and
I have a feeling that Rudy was grumpy long before he got to even your age, Tim. I just have a feeling this is just how Rudy. And again, you have to go back to these quotes. So again, the quotes in the front of the book.
Oh yes, what do you say about Rudy?
Rudy's quote: "I don't need none of that affection."
I don't. Say again?
I don't need none of that affection.
I don't need none of that.
None of that affection.
Oh my goodness, that's so untrue.
Rudy, in a nutshell. I mean, he has affection for Marge, clearly. Right?
Yes,
that's about it.
Yes,
that's about it.
We don't talking about that. I don't need none of that. No, don't. Let's not. No, I don't need no talking about that.
That's not bad. That is not bad. Oh, and then just one more, just because, Tim, I know how much you love Dirk. So Dirk says, I feel pornography is a sin, but when I was mad at God, I did look at some.
I just didn't inhale. If people only knew a little bit more Greek, they would realize it simply means bad drawing. And there's plenty of that around the place.
That's what pornography literally means, bad drawing.
Yeah. Porno, which is bad, and graphos, which is drawing. So, we've all been guilty of a bit of that.
So we get our votes, like we discussed. Sean gets votes from Colleen and Kelly, and everybody else votes for Colleen. And it's cute even, actually. So when Sean votes for Colleen, he actually calls her Cooleen, and he says, he's voting for her, even and he likes her even though she calls him a putz.
Yes. So Sean is the one who spells her name wrongly.
Well, but he did that on purpose. Like I said, he voted off Cooleen, Kooleen.
I didn't pick that up at all.
Yeah, no, I think that was an intentional misspell.
Yeah, he was trying to say she's cool.
She's cool, right? Even though she calls me a putz.
I do hate it when people misspell my own name, I must say. They've only got 3 letters to choose from.
Hey, I got you beat by 1.
Yep.
Fascinating. When I actually have a Russian identity card, and all of my names are spelled differently. But I was so amused when on one occasion I was doing a lesson or doing a lecture, and it was being filmed. And you'll find this, I think, somewhere on YouTube. And a boy comes into the lecture room late, and I say, "Do come in." And he's not mic'd up. I'm the only one mic'd up, so you can't hear what he's saying. And I say, "Oh, that's my name too." and are you Timothy or Timothy? So am I. He's the only Timothy in that I've ever met in Russia who's got a TH in his name. Otherwise, there is no TH. So it doesn't occur in my name.
Oh, it's normally Timothy. There's no TH sound in Russian. You're saying?
No.
Interesting.
So Martha and Fyodor.
Mm-hmm.
Fyodor as opposed to Theodore.
Okay, that's how they substitute.
Yeah, Fyodor, Dostoevsky, and all sorts of stuff. It's so wonderful, so wonderful. Gosh. Anyway.
Okay, so we do get Colleen's last words, not surprisingly, as her torches snuffed. She says, "Play fair, be nice," and I think we can both tell her going forward that those 4 words, none of that is going to happen next week, right?
Oh, really? Is she going to be particular? Oh, yeah. Of course, everybody else is going to be nasty.
Right. So for next week, what do we see? We see that Sue and Kelly, it seems, are finally going to have a fight. Right? They've been teasing this for several episodes, and it looks like that might be what we're going to see next week. Because as you said, so we have 2 regular episodes left. Right, we're now to 5 people. Next week we'll go down to 4, and then we will have our final 4 and a 2-hour finale.
Oh, right.
And so far right now we finally have gotten rid of all the pagongs. Right, it's now Taggy 4 plus Sean. Now,
you see, I thought Sean would go out today. I was really quite sure he would go out today, and I thought the program was setting him up to go out today. I
wouldn't have been surprised. What did you? I mean, AJ, again, you've seen this years ago, as have I.
Yeah, no, he absolutely should have. I know. I was very heartbroken when Colleen went, because one of my favorite things was that every single show, at the end of the show, when they showed the visual recap of all the votes being cast, you always had Colleen going, "Well," with her arm out to the side. It was, this is what I wanted for. And we just got so used to seeing, we're going to miss.
But nevertheless, she, at the beginning of the show, she sort of set herself up to want to go, hasn't she? She said that these been the longest 5 days of my life, and was it now? I'm the last sole survivor.
Right.
Being picked off one by one. I miss my old beach.
And she's missing her friends. Right. So from that standpoint,
so I put her out of her misery at this point. I think I think it's a service to the program.
I don't think she had much fight left in her. But had Sean's silliness in picking Richard come back to bite him like it probably should have by all rights, then you have 5 people left. Maybe the alliance. We see Kelly is not necessarily in with the alliance anymore. Can she pull a person in and go with Colleen? And now it's 3-2, and now she's in the final.
Then it would have been slightly more interesting. In fact, we should have got rid of Sean.
Yeah, I mean, she definitely could have gotten there. It would have been interesting, and with all the pagong on the jury, who knows what would have happened?
Right. Yeah, because it's important to keep in mind that all of these people are pagong.
And if Colleen gets to the end somehow.
Right. If only one person from Tagi from pagong to get.
Yes, that would have been. Oh, so right. Yes, of course. Yeah. That would have been very interesting. So now we've got pagong on the jury.
Pagong has been pagonged. They're all
voting for people on the other side. That's what's going to happen.
Right.
So they're going to have to between Rudy and Richard, or whoever.
We will see.
Yeah, we got Rudy, Richard, Sue, Kelly, and Sean are left. So
regardless
of who's in there, they have to vote for him.
It has to be Richard. One of them has to be Richard, I think, at this stage now. And the other one, I would have thought probably Rudy will sort of sweep in there gently. I don't see the girls with much staying power. I think they're going to squabble among themselves, and they'll all get voted off one after the other, like some sort of. What's that wonderful thing that you do on the with the tin soldiers that also tumble?
Oh, you mean like with dominoes? You mean you line?
No, it's a Christmas thing, and you've got the
I don't do Christmas, so I'm the wrong person.
Radio City.
The Rockettes, yeah.
The Rockettes, yes,
Rockettes,
like Rockettes.
yes.
They just tumble like Rockettes.
Well, if they tumble, they're not doing a very good job.
in England, we have the Tiller Girls, or we used to have the Tiller Girls in the 1950s or something. Actually, we had them at the beginning of the 1960s. I sort of remember them on Sunday night at the London Palladium.
All right.
Oh, God.
Is there anything else on this scintillating episode of Survivor that we didn't touch on that you want to talk about? Either AJ, anything before we?
No, I think we covered it very nicely. I think this was not an episode that brought with it a whole lot of tension. And
I think it's brought with it a lot of digression from me, so I must apologize hugely. It's because I'm in my office. I'm sort of inspired.
If we didn't digress, this would have been over in 15 minutes. That's why I'm reading the contestant bios out of Mark Burnett's book, right?
I will say I'm very envious of you, Tim, getting to watch the next 3 hours worth of what's left, because this is not a show that like stumbled to the finish line. I think there's some phenomenal scenes, some of the best scenes in American reality television still to come.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I'm looking forward to that. I'm all ready to go. Like a hamburger.
The hamburger. In what way? I'm almost afraid to ask.
Ready to go.
Got it.
Yeah. Isn't that an expression? Ready to go?
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Not like not like ready to wear.
Oh, ready to wear? No. Well, obviously not if you're Richard. But
I would say he's always ready to wear, right?
Well, the insoles, yes, absolutely.
Right.
Here's an insole, ready to wear wherever you want.
Well, we're just two countries separated by the same language. It's you take away, we take out.
Right.
It's all different.
You preserve. Well, I am told you preserve, but somebody told me the other day it isn't true. But I think you preserve original English almost as well as the Scottish do. You and the Scots have my original language. We had this very strange thing sort of vowel change thing in the we had it in the 13th century, and then we had it again in the 18th century. And in the 18th century, it was all predicated on snobbery, and people wanting to sound like people between Oxford, Cambridge, and London, where there was a centre of government, and vowels got sort of very strangulated. And that's what I speak. I think basically, I've got that very strange English, which bears no relation to reality. As my partner is constantly telling me, how on earth do you end up with that sound with these letters? And it's not consistent. No, absolutely not. No,
not at all.
Yeah. So just to bring it back to the beginning, I just want to give you, there was one comment from Anthony Eros back 2 hours ago.
Right, yes.
Talking about Tim's origins and a drawer full of ladies' knickers. So we have a little limerick here from there was a man in a barrel singing a Christmas carol. His kitty said, "Stop it." He replied, "Oh no, dear Poppet, I'm dressed in my lady's apparel."
This is every possible reference. Every possible reference I'm going to have Edward Lear and Mrs. Doubtfire. And my rather strange mother, who went under the most improbable name.
Okay, what was her name?
Well, her maiden name, it was called Cobbledick. Yeah, exactly. It's either something that belongs on the top shelf, or it's something that it's a strange name from Charles Dickens, and it is sort of rather blissful. Sadly, she didn't live up to her name.
Yeah. She was, and the name she gave you was Frances, right? So you would have been Frances Cobbledick?
I was, no, by that point she'd married a man called Mr. Williams, which is a bit spooky in its own right, you know, puppets. So I was Francis Michael Williams, bit Irish, Francis Michael Williams. And but yes, obviously there is the Robin Williams link there as well. So how that fits in, God knows. But in the mid 1990s, somebody did decide that he wanted to make a documentary about my origins and see whether or not I was related to the divine Robin. But somehow the documentary never took off. We did a week's filming, and somewhere I've got all the rushes. We went back to my hometown, which was fascinating. And at that point, my old house was pretty well intact, falling down, but intact. And then new people bought it, who I knew, and tarted it up and rebuilt bits of it. It's all
that's definitely a documentary that I would love to see.
Well, it's not filmable anymore. It's all changed. But yes, Ellen Cobbledick, strange lady, and my partner discovered her because we read an extraordinary newspaper article about some woman, some slightly crazy woman, who was complaining about weevils in her flour that she'd bought from the supermarket. I took it home. I took the flour home, and I put it in the cupboard, and these things got everywhere, decimated my Christmas. I can't open a cupboard without weeping. And I tried to take them to court. And the judge said, she's such a complainer. She's clearly your mother. And, and he was right. He was right. It was her. That was my mother. It took a little bit longer to actually track her down, but it was definitely her.
Right. So AJ, after this extra little bit weird and a little bit interesting show, where can people find you on social media if they want to know about the archetypes or Mr. Met or sports or everything else?
Just at AJ Mass on Twitter, AJMASS, AJ Mass on Twitter. You can find me there. I'm usually pretty good at responding to people if you're polite. And I go to ESPN.com. You can see some of the stuff I'm writing. I'm mostly editing now because we're not doing as many articles as we used to, but you can find me there. And I'm sure one of these days I'll be back on with Rob. Rob has a podcast. You can listen to some of the back catalog of my podcast with him when we talk about.
Because you don't do the archetypes for returning seasons, right? So we didn't have one.
It's
before.
really hard because there's not going to be fresh meat on a season of returning players because they all know the game before, and stuff like that. You can map it a little bit, but it's harder.
If you are interested, I'm putting you on the spot because we're doing this live, but I would love to have you come back for Australian Outback whenever we get to 13 people, whatever episode that is, and see if you want to do it for a season for which you've never done.
Sure. Although I did watch. I've been watching Australia and South Africa. So
no, this is Australian Outback, not Survivor.
Oh, you mean this episode?
We are just
going
to continue with American Survivor.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're continuing forever.
So not bad. 40 years of content and coming.
Yeah. Just on it goes. Like Mrs. Thatcher, I'm just go on and on.
Well, I can be your Iron Lady. That's fine. Yes.
Oh, please. Iron Lady or Iron Lung. Who knows what we'll need in a few years' time.
So, Tim, tell everybody all of your slightly different social media handles.
Oh, yeah.
Really, if you go into any of these and you just put in Professor Tim Wilson, you will find him.
Will you really?
Yes.
I'm
horrible at remembering them, and I can always find you.
So I always seem to be a bit distracted when I look at the internet, and I often go off on tangent looking at somebody else. I haven't quite had that sort of onanistic thrill of typing in my own name and trying to see what comes up. But you are encouraging me now to do it. So right. So if you want to find me on Instagram, I'm Professor_Tim_Wilson. On Twitter, which is so exciting, though I've been boycotting Twitter for the last day because there was some anti-Semitic vile bile on Twitter. But I'll be back. I'll be back there, and I'm encouraging Twitter. So that's Prof_Tim_Wilson. And is that it? Isn't there something? Oh, YouTube. YouTube. I've just put up some things on YouTube with me. Doing sort of tribute to Robin Williams because it was his birthday last week, and so I've done a little imitation of Mrs. Doubtfire, and I've explained how I get there. It's a slightly different route to the way Robin got there. He got there through Glasgow. I go there through Maggie Smith, and but it sort of works in the end. We get to the same part, Poppets. Oh, it's all very nice, dear. And
that's what you think. If you're going to do that, then you have to come up with an impression for at least one of us survivors.
I will. But I've really got to perfect my American accent, and my American accent is all over the place. Any moment I try an American accent, I sound like I'm trying to sell you something, or I'm going to talk about God. It's I'll appear at your door and sort of ring your doorbell and say, I'd like to talk to you about God. And when people used to do this at my door when I was a child, my mother would answer the door, Tim, it's for you. That was all very entertaining. But so YouTube is under my partner's name. It's Zontul Films Limited, ZONTULFILMS LTD, and it's incredibly exciting. You get to see me chomping around as Mrs. D and singing the praises of the great Robin, and there's also some Edward Lear there, and every so often little bits in Russian and Turkish and Greek and God knows whatever. I don't know any other languages. I don't.
Whatever has sparked Tim's fancy that day, which could be anything.
Oh, come! You have to come and visit us. We're on YouTube anyway, aren't we? Isn't this YouTube?
Yes, we are.
Yeah,
yes.
There we are.
Yes, we are. And then we also release this just as an audio-only file for people who just want to listen to it.
Oh my God, people will be so confused. I feel that without visuals, I don't work. You just have this mad voice in the corner, just shrieking away like some sort of pantomime dame with strange British references. Yeah.
Well, people love it, Tim. Don't ever change. And you can see my Twitter handle is up here at Karen Talks a Lot. On Facebook and Instagram, I am just at Karen Bell Eisenberg. I am trying to use Twitter more. I got very into Facebook, more than a decade ago, and I never really moved over to Twitter and Instagram. So now I do have profiles, and I'm trying to use it more. But the more people follow me on Instagram and Twitter, the more likely it is that I will actually post things there and not only on Facebook. So now, just coming up on Survivor NSFW, first of all, check out our new website at survivornsfw.com. If you haven't seen that, it really, really looks amazing. Tomorrow at 9 p.m. Eastern, Johnny will be talking with Kobe Archer from Palau. And next week, he will have Danger Dave Ball from Survivor Samoa. Also, we are hoping to bring you BB coverage, assuming that there is, in fact, a BB season. The tentative plan is that we will give you BB coverage twice a week. And we were all ready yesterday to go live to talk about our cast, except we don't have a cast yet. And we're still hoping that there's going to be a cast, but we're not really sure. But when and if there is an announcement of a new cast, Zach and Johnny and I will jump on as quickly as we can. And then we are hoping to give you 2 shows a week, discussing this all-star season, which should be amazing if it actually happens. I'm not trying not to get too excited because it's 2020 and we don't get nice things. But we're hoping, and if it happens in the world, it will happen here. Also, if you enjoy our programming, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com. Survivor NSFW patrons get early ad-free access to all shows, access to additional episodes like our weekly Q&As, Castaway watch-alongs, other special programming. Like we talked about, Tim and I were hoping to do a one-off between Survivor seasons. We're hoping to bring you a show about Sequester and explain how this, which is a reality show, but it takes place these days entirely online. Things like that. So yes. And all of these things, and some of these things are available for free, but a lot of these special things are limited to patrons only. We also have a dedicated Facebook group where we play trivia, we play other games, we cast fantasy seasons, and more. Next week, I am going to be joined by Jordan Kalish, who is the host of This Week in Survivor, also on RHAP, and he was also the host and one of the creators of the circle distancing game. I may have been involved in a fan-made version of the circle, and Jordan might have had something to do with that, and hopefully at some point that is actually going to show up on YouTube with seasons. So that you can see just how well or badly I did when I tried to play the circle.
Is it my circle?
It's the same show, yes, to the extent that they mimic it with just a bunch of people playing at home.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah, so we'll speak to Jordan about that next week.
I'm looking so forward to that. Yeah, absolutely. I hope you do better than we did. Are you playing yourself?
No, everybody had to play as a catfish because I knew a bunch of these people in real life. And they knew that was going to happen. I didn't know everybody, but I probably knew about half of them.
Well, the producers in the real show tried to get everybody to play as a catfish. I was going to be Mrs. May. I think I've said this so often, it's absurd. Mrs. May was one of our most dreadful prime ministers.
Yes, I'm familiar.
Yeah. We all agree on that, don't we?
You wanted to play as her, but they said, no, you have to play as yourself. Look, I've been telling people.
You will go down in history as a month. That's it.
Yeah.
How long am I going to survive? 31 days, darling. And the cornfield.
All of that coming up next week, and I hope to see you all there. In the meantime, so next week, as usual, at 2 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. GMT. And in the meantime, please stay safe, stay healthy, wear your masks, people. I want this to be over already. I miss travel. So we'll see you all next week on Survivor NSFW Rewind. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.